Good morning, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode of On the FinSide here with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. I'm Brian Cat NFL. Paul is fanatic_pick on Twitter. Also, go check out our segment with Ed Easton Jr. breaking down the Chiefs sideline. You can follow him at Ed Easton Jr. on Twitter as well. Well, Paul, this is the big one here. I mean, the Dolphins are 8-4. The Chiefs are 11-1. And when you look at this matchup here, even if we weren't Dolphins fans, I would be heading into this game as an NFL fan, being really excited and having this be one of the games that I would go out of my way to watch, because you've got the Chiefs who have scored the second most amount of points in the league on offense, playing the Dolphins, who have allowed the second least amount of points on defense this year.
Yeah, I would too, but only because I know who and what the Dolphins are. A lot of NFL fans still don't realize that the Dolphins have turned their ship around. I think it's like a few teams, and including myself, every time I look at the Browns' schedule, I look at it and just go, oh, wow, how did that happen? And I think a lot of the NFL fans that don't pay the close attention to the Dolphins still don't know that Miami's really here and real. I mean, you listen to the national broadcasts, a lot of them still haven't really given the Dolphins credit. And if you haven't watched their games, which let's face it, they haven't been huge in a lot of markets right now. You're looking at this going, the Chiefs got the Dolphins this week. Ha, 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 ha. But the good side of that is this is a chance for Miami to have a little coming out party. Win or lose, Miami can have a coming out party in this one. If you show up and you hit them in the mouth and you keep this within 3 points like I think it's going to be, you actually get a little bit more credibility out there, even in a losing effort, if that happens. And I'm not saying that they lose yet, but you really show off who and what you are.
Yeah, you bet. And as far as the matchup here, right now on paper, Tua has 7 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the Dolphins have one of the best defenses in the league. In my opinion, the Dolphins aren't there on offense, but defensively, I would put them up with any team in the league.
Yeah.
But my point is that if you go into this game and this ends up being a shootout between Tua and Mahomes, with Tua coming out ahead, I know that's an optimistic look, and I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. That is when the narrative really starts to change. If you look at the stat sheet after this week and you see Tua with 10 touchdowns and no interceptions, the Dolphins at 9-4, just beating the Chiefs, you're going to start to see the Dolphins top 5 in a lot of these power rankings.
Yeah, you really are. And in reality, Miami's designed well overall to go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, which sounds insane. But you look at how they're built, and even with the holes that they have, they're really designed well to go against the Chiefs and what NFL teams are moving towards trying to be, which is the type of offense and defense that the Chiefs run. You've got Tua, who he throws a good ball. He can throw a deep ball, but he excels in RPO, short area, a little bit of game management, which is okay right now. I expect him to grow from there, and really like hitting his tight ends, hitting his little guys across the middle, and that's really one of the chinks in the Chiefs' defense. They don't have a tremendous pass rush. Miami's amazing at taking away the tight end, and the Chiefs don't cover tight ends, which is just mind-boggling. So, what Miami has, you could really potentially have a little bit of fun against the Chiefs and make it a lot better matchup than some people think.
Yeah, I mean, right now the Chiefs are favored by 7 points, and going back to what you said on Tua, what I'm looking for on offense is 2 things, and I'm going to be so frustrated if I don't see them in this game. A lot of motion from the wide receivers and a lot of no huddle. We saw in the third quarter of the Bengals game that when they switched to doing those two things, they started moving the ball effectively. They immediately got a long touchdown drive from Tua, capped off by the Mike Gesicki catch. And even though they were settling for field goals the rest of the game, they were dominating on defense. They were playing conservatively, but they were moving the ball on offense. Tua in the second half, when they switched really to doing no huddle consistently, I mean, was 15 for 20 for over 180 yards and a touchdown in the second half. So my frustration would be that the Dolphins, if the Dolphins come out in this game and they can't put points on the board early, they get washed away early because they're being too conservative again.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up about the no huddle because I did think that that was really effective for the Dolphins. But what I need to see from Miami this week and what they need to do to win this game, the Chiefs aren't a team that you can settle for field goals against consistently. You don't beat the Chiefs settling for field goals. It's Miami needs to clean up their red zone offense this week. I hope that Chan Gailey and Brian Flores went back and looked at the tape last week and basically said, the hell is this? Really, what the hell is this? We ran up the middle 3 downs in a row like we had a big battering ram of a running back there. We don't. We ran the fade and we ran the slant. I think exclusively from the right side even. It was the most unimaginative Madden let the coach select it for you offense I've seen once they got within 10 yards of the end zone. And that is sad, considering the personnel Miami has, the creativity they've shown at times. The only time they looked creative was on special teams, which isn't Chan Gailey calling that play.
Exactly right.
So, yeah,
Exactly
they can
right.
score, and they need to.
I don't understand why, when they get to the 15-yard line, suddenly you can't use wide receivers in motion anymore when it's worked for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. I mean, I don't think Jakeem Grant is doing a lot of blocking out there at wide receiver anyway, when the field is, especially when the field is that short. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense there. Looking at some injuries here, the Dolphins are going to be without left guard Eric Flowers and backup running back Savon Ahmed in this game. What'll be fascinating to see too, Paul, is, there's been a lot of talk this week that the Dolphins offensive line actually played better when Jesse Davis was inserted at right guard and Solomon Kindley moved to left guard.
They did. And I hate to break it to folks, this isn't really a litmus test for the offensive line in this one. The Chiefs do a lot of things well. Getting after the passer is not one of them. And I do expect this to be a game that turns into a little bit of a shootout. And even if their defensive line can't pin their ears back in this one, they're not good at getting to the quarterback in any way, shape, or form. If they still had a guy named Emmanuel Agba, they might be. But so I'm not going to bash Flowers because he has been one of our most consistent offensive linemen. But yeah, the line did look pretty damn good after he went down last week.
Yeah, and it might have been based on the situation too. As far as what you said there with the interior line, I mean, yeah, overall the Chiefs have not been good at getting to the quarterback this year, especially from the outside. Frank Clark has not provided that consistent pass rush this year, and they really don't have anybody on the other side. Yeah, Agba would have come in very handy for them. But inside, they've got arguably the best defensive tackle in the game this side of Aaron Donald, and that's Chris Jones. He's somebody that I wanted to hit free agency last year. I think he's a phenomenal football player. He can provide that interior pass rush. But on the other hand of that, unless Chris Jones is in there on every play, Tua is pretty skilled at I think Tua is more affected by outside rushers than he is by interior rush because he's more capable of moving his legs to get to the outside to find somebody.
Exactly. It's Tua naturally gets out of the pocket an awful lot, and suddenly that interior pass rush is chasing ghosts if they don't have the edge players to keep him inside, and they don't. They just don't.
A big player in this game too is going to be Myles Gaskin. He was a huge it was a huge return to the lineup last week for him. He had 141 all-purpose yards. Yeah, he didn't have a lot of, I think he had 12 carries for 30 yards at one point. But then as the game wore down, things started to bust loose a little bit. And that's why you've got to stick with the running game a little bit longer, I think, in this one. Because if you do and you can have some success, you start to take possessions away from the Kansas City Chiefs, because that's what you have to do. The Chiefs do not waste possessions. It's common for them to go quarters without having a 3 and out. It's if you hold the Chiefs to a field goal on a drive, that's considered a win. So the more that you can take away from them on offense, the better you are. And Gaskin is a huge part of that. Gaskin on the year in 9 games, Paul, 726 all-purpose yards, just a shade under 81 yards a game, rushing and receiving. So this is a game that if we've talked about adding a running back, and I don't think that's going to change in the offseason, but Gaskin could be a big part of this picture moving forward, and this game could be good evidence if he plays well.
Yeah, if Gaskin can be that complimentary running back down the stretch, I put it out there this week on Twitter. I would love if Miami's backfield for next year is Gaskin, Ahmed, Washington, and a drafted player. And given the speed and elusiveness we've seen from some of those guys, I want the same thing I've wanted for a while, and I want that complimentary big strong back to go with the other 3 guys that Miami's got. I think they've found something off the scrap heap in Ahmed and Washington, and Gaskin has shown every bit of what I thought he could be when they drafted him, and I do think he could be a complimentary piece moving forward.
Exactly right. And at running back and wide receiver, free agency and the draft should be stocked with options. If you can add a Najee Harris in the draft, and you can add a free agent wide receiver, maybe like a Chris Godwin or a Juju Smith-Schuster, now suddenly you could potentially, Myles Gaskin is your second running back, Savon Ahmed is your third, Washington is your fourth. At wide receiver, you've got Parker and you've got Juju out there. And now you start knocking down Mike Gesicki to the third option, Jakeem Grant to the fourth, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, that's where they're going to have to go here in the offseason, and they've got to prove that. At wide receiver, Devontae Parker, only with 3 catches for 18 yards or something last game. He wasn't featured a whole heck of a lot because the Dolphins used so much motion. He's going to go up against a very feast or famine cornerback position for the Chiefs this week with Brashawn Breeland and Chardavius Ward. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his first name, but that'll be fascinating because on one hand, the Chiefs those cornerbacks are susceptible to double moves and giving up some big plays, but they're also capable of making big plays at that cornerback spot too.
They are, and really what scares me in their secondary isn't their cornerback position. Their safety position, that pairing and the way that they're utilized is one of the best pairings in football. Tyrann Mathieu, got it. The Honey Badger.
Honey Badger, yeah.
We'll just go with that.
Tyrann Mathieu.
I just can't get it. It's one of those names I just choke on when I try to say it, and I love the guy. He definitely takes everything up front, and I'm blanking on the name right now, but they're deep free safety. He's back there taking away everything over the top. So you cannot just sit there. You've got to look those 2 off. Honey Badger will bite if you look him off, but you have to do it.
Juan Thornhill at free safety there, and Nick Sorensen. Really, they go with 3 safety a lot. Where Tyrann Mathieu
plays in Sorensen.
Yeah, plays well. He plays a lot too, and Honey Badger has 5 interceptions this year. Nick Sorensen has 3. So they make a lot of big plays, and that can get dangerous with Mike Gesicki. We saw him get down the seam a little bit more last game, and those throws were there. I'm not saying they won't be there, but he can be baited into that throw. And if that's so, it'll be fascinating to see who gets more big plays out of the Dolphins passing game or those Chiefs safeties in this matchup. So yeah, but also too on defense. I mean, I think the common misconception is that the Chiefs have a unbelievable offense and a defense that's either average or below average. And I don't really think that's the case. Their biggest weakness is at pass rush. And Ed Easton Jr. on our segment is from the Chiefs Wire. He talked about that a little bit. And but other than pass rush, they're pretty solid across the board. I mean, you look at what they've done defensively here. I think they're sixth in total yards, top 10 in points allowed, and fifth in opposing quarterback rating at 83.1. So they check mark all the boxes to be able to play defense well in today's NFL.
They do. It's. I think a lot of people have them confused with the Seahawks model, which right now anyway, which is piss poor defense and tremendous offense. It's the Chiefs. I mean, you've seen it where they've had their shootout games where they blow teams out, but the other teams aren't able to hang because their defense keeps them honest. And it's they do have holes though. I wouldn't just say it's pass rusher. I really wouldn't. They are a great play if you're playing a tight end in fantasy and you need to stream a tight end and they're going against the Chiefs. Play that tight end. It's what they do well is also allows certain things. Every defense has holes because of the strengths that they play to. And really, if you can keep the Honey Badger backed up a little bit, you've got an area behind their linebackers, which their linebackers are basically designed, and their front seven's designed to stop the run right now. They don't really get after the passer very well. They're designed to stop the run. So you've got a little window of opportunity there that if you've got, say, a Lynn Bowden Jr., Jakeem Grant, a Mike Gesicki, if you can hit them there, they're more susceptible to plays like the Tyler Boyd one we had against Miami last week before he got ejected. If you can hit them in the hit the player in the short area, and you've got somebody that can take it to the house, they're susceptible. Once you do that, Honey Badger's aggressive enough, he's going to start coming up, and he's not going to be helping to your left and your right. And then you can start opening it up to guys like Devontae. You can start using those double moves and going up the seam. The more movement you put out there, the more you're going to be able to take advantage of this defense. But you've got to set them up to be able to take advantage.
Yeah, Honey Badger can make a lot of plays. He also gives a lot up. And we'll see how that materializes throughout the game. And he's a clutch player, too. He has been since his days at LSU. As far as the run defense, it's kind of fascinating with him because you look at the last 4 weeks for the Chiefs. They hold, Christian McCaffrey and Josh Jacobs, they hold to under 4 yards a carry. They have a great day against them. But over the last 2 weeks now, the Chiefs are allowing 5.8 yards a carry to opposing running backs. And Melvin Gordon, 15 for 131 last week. Ronald Jones, 9 for 66 the week before. So these were tight games, and they had a tough time stopping the run in both games. That's where Myles Gaskin really does have an opportunity to come here and be the star of the show here. So it's we've talked about the offense versus the Chiefs defense here. On the defensive side of the ball, the big question is how much do the Dolphins bring it in this game? How much are they going to put heat on Patrick Mahomes here? Because it's two different things going here. Is the Dolphins blitz more than any team in the league other than the Baltimore Ravens. They blitz over 40% of the time. Obviously, it's been wildly effective this year, and I love the look. And then they combine that blitz with the cover zero look where they don't have a safety deep. Now, in this game, you're facing Pat Mahomes, who against the blitz this year has 12 touchdowns and no interceptions with a quarterback rating of 138. So that's the question is, do you bring it a lot and confuse them and force them into quick decisions and trust Tyreek Hill isn't going to get deep? Or do you play off a little bit?
You bring it. That is Miami's game. That is what got them to the second lowest number of points allowed, and they're right on Pittsburgh's doorstep with that one. You play your game that got you here. Uh, the second in football you stop playing your game, you might as well just hang it up and give it to the other team. It's you come after him, but you do it smartly. You make him make those quick decisions where he doesn't know who's dropping in coverage, and you keep Rowe on Kelsey. You don't give Tyreek that time to roast, Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, and Noah Igbenogany might be the guy most able to potentially stay with Tyreek Hill, believe it or not, just based on his speed. But it's yeah, you've got to get after him, and maybe he'll hit one of those D linemen that drop in coverage that he's not expecting right in the chest, like we've seen a few times this year.
Speed wise, yeah, no Igbenogany, fastest cornerback on the roster. I also still don't want to see him anywhere near the field at this time.
Yeah.
Now, I will say he played 18 snaps last week, didn't allow a catch. Is getting better, is improving. It's not a knock on him as a future Dolphin. I just don't think he's there yet. Will be fascinating to see, though. We're gonna a little bit later on here today. We're gonna find out if Jamal Perry is going to be on the field or not for Sunday, because this is a game here too where Igbenogany, if he is your sixth or seventh defensive back on the field, you're not facing a normal fourth wide receiver on an NFL roster. You might be facing Mecole Hardman or Demarcus Robinson, a guy that could probably start on 10 or 15 NFL teams right now.
Yeah, he probably could, but you know what? It's the Chiefs game this year runs through three players that aren't Pat Mahomes. It runs through Travis Kelsey. It runs through Tyreek Hill, both of whom have over 1,000 yards receiving already. And when healthy, it runs through Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well, coming out of the backfield and running with the ball. And if you can take those three away, if you tell me that they stop Tyreek Hill, they stopped Travis Kelsey, and they stopped Clyde Edwards-Helaire in this one and lost by a point or two, I can take that right now in the middle of a rebuild. I can be happy with that if they stood their ground and forced some bad decisions. Because I think once you take those guys away, if you can, which is a tremendous thing to do, if you can, you're going to start forcing some of those mistakes.
Yeah, I would tweak what you said from stop them or take them away to controlling them. Because and I know that's
a better word.
It's because this is a game too where, look, the Chiefs averaged 34 points a game on offense last year, won the Super Bowl. This year they're 11-1, averaging 30.8 points a game this year. It was unheard of last week that they only scored 22 against the Broncos, and it's only because they made a lot of mistakes that held them to field goals. They were moving the ball. Pat Mahomes had 318 yards last week, and it seemed like he had a terrible game. There may be times in this game where Dolphins fans will be looking at this saying, what the heck's going on with the Dolphins defense? You're playing the Chiefs. I mean, they're going to score points. They're going to get yards. It's just a matter of if you can hold them to more field goals, get some turnovers, and match them offensively.
And I'm glad you brought up the Broncos game, because what was different in that one? The Broncos didn't really play like they were scared of them, even though they damn well should have. The Broncos went after him. And that is exactly what I was talking about before. You get after them and you make mistakes. If you sit back on your heels, you're going to let Patrick Mahomes pick you apart. You just are. And the Broncos went after him. And that started to force the Chiefs' hand. And I don't think there's a single person out there that has watched both teams that would tell me that, if I asked them right now, would tell me that the Broncos have a better defense or a better ability to get after Patrick Mahomes or anybody than the Dolphins.
Exactly right. The Dolphins have a better defense than
and a better
the Broncos.
Secondary.
But yeah, they've got a better everything than the Broncos, even though the Broncos beat the Dolphins a few weeks ago. I don't think that's exemplifies that the Broncos are a better team in 2020. So yeah, the Dolphins do have a better defense. Now, as far as the high amount of blitzing and cover zero. I agree that should be a major part of the Dolphins game plan here, because I would rather trust Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, the people that you played, even if you're going against, in my opinion, by far the best tight end in the game and the best deep threat in the game in Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce is on pace to break the tight end record for yards by over 100 yards. I mean, he's incredible. And Tyreek Hill, but my point is that if you play up on Tyreek Hill, yeah, he might burn you for a 60-yard touchdown. In fact, he probably is going to. But is that worse than playing conservatively, playing your cornerbacks a little far back and having Pat Mahomes go 12 plays, 80 yards on you? I don't think it is.
Yeah, and you know what? I Travis Kelce is probably arguably the best tight end in the game, up there with, you can go back and forth with him, George Kittle.
That's about it, I'd say.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking out loud here. But here's one of the great things about that. Miami has probably the best tight end eraser in the game right now in Eric Rowe. The man has just eliminated tight ends in so many games or made them so ineffective. No one has beaten us with the tight end this year. And, he's gone up against George Kittle, and I can't recall George Kittle even having a catch in that game, which is tremendous, especially given the fact that George Kittle was supposed to be a safety valve in that game, given some of the issues that they had.
That's a good point on there with Kittle. Kittle did play against the Dolphins, didn't he? Before, I know he's out for the year now.
He did.
Okay.
Kittle played the whole game healthy.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I do remember him making a couple of short catches, but you're right. Your point is exactly right. And they've got Rowe at strong safety, who has been phenomenal against tight ends. I think they move Kelce around a little bit more, but yeah. And go ahead. I interrupted you there.
No, you're good. With what Miami's doing with Bobby and Brandon in the middle of the defense back there, I think they can help over the top and be able to commit to that because of what Rowe does with the tight ends. It's the tight end play in this game is going to be so goddamn huge, and I'm going to use my one there because it's the Chiefs don't cover tight ends, and Miami's got a dynamic receiving threat at tight end in Mike Gesicki. The Chiefs have a great tight end, and Miami's got a tight end eraser in Eric Rowe. That is huge in this game. When you've got 1,000+ yard receiving tight end, he's probably going to hit a bump this week, barring injury to Eric Rowe. Eric Rowe is one of the most critical cogs for the Dolphins in this game. More critical than our boundary guys on Tyreek Hill. Because what Eric Rowe does best can take away one of the strengths of their offense. And I can't believe I'm saying it about Eric Rowe, somebody that at corner we didn't even want on the Dolphins anymore. He moves to safety, and he's lights out. And the things he do put Miami in position to win. And there's no bigger game for him other than covering George Kittle earlier this year than there is covering the Travis Kelce.
It's definitely going to be one of Kelce's bigger matchups of the year. I give Kelce the advantage over anyone, but that's only because of the type of player Kelce is. I mean, we're talking about, to me, he just set a record last week for 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons from a tight end at 6'6", 260 pounds. This is not only one of the best tight ends in the league. This to me is the best tight end in the league, maybe the best overall receiver in the league. And I'm not exaggerating for what he does. And the guy throwing him the ball is, to me, if not by far, he is, to me, the best player on the Pat Mahomes is the best player in the league on the best team in the league in the NFL. That's where the Dolphins have a tough matchup this week. But here's the big thing is I'm going to enjoy this game because I don't know how you feel, but before the Bengals game and before the Jets game, I'm a nervous wreck. And then when the Bengals and Jets score first, I'm just about inconsolable, even though I still think the Dolphins are going to win. This game here, look, I'm not saying, hey, whatever, it's not a big game. It is a big game. But if the Dolphins play a good game against the Chiefs and don't come out ahead in this, I'm still not going to say the heck with this rebuild. This team chokes. It has no guts or any of that other nonsense people say during the game.
Yeah, I. When have you heard me do that? I
No,
agree
not
with you.
you, not
No,
you.
but I'm just saying, like, as far as like, oh no, the sky is falling because we lost a game. Now, granted, going up against bad teams like the Jets and the Broncos, you do get nervous because even the best teams will drop a stinker against a mystifying team on occasion. And you just don't want to see it. You don't ever want it to be your team. But yeah, no, it's I think Miami can hang with these guys. And if Miami hangs with these guys, win or lose, it's a victory. Given what the Chiefs have done the past few years and this year, and what the Dolphins have done the past few years coming into this year.
Yeah,
And don't discount. You look at Flores and in his very limited time as a head coach last season with a glorified CFL roster that would lose to an XFL roster. He hit December last year and started smoking good teams with a
yeah.
terrible roster, arguably the worst roster I've seen in football in the past 5 to 7 years last year
It
at
was
that point.
incredible. You're pulling guys off the street and literally putting them in the starting lineups. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
seeing guys like, for example, what Nate Brooks and Lyndon Stevens, cornerbacks from last year, like they're on practice squads barely, if they're on that at all. I mean, where's Avery Moss? Where are these types of guys? I mean, it's quite incredible. Yeah, and if you had told me after the Dolphins 0-7 start last year that in the following, let's see, 21 games, they would be 13-8, I would have said you're out of your freaking mind. So this, yeah, I'm going to enjoy these last four games here because it's a tough stretch of games. Patriots game doesn't look as tough now because Cam Newton is looking absolutely putrid, but you got to win two of these last four games to get to 10-6 to get in the playoffs. And that's what's exciting here is if you show up against the Chiefs here and you know they're a team that's looked more beatable the last 4 weeks. They haven't won a game by more than a touchdown in the last 4 weeks. So if you can pull this one out, you can pull the upset off. We're looking at a 9-4 team. Then you're a favorite against the Patriots. We could be looking at that, 10-12 win season that you thought was possible at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and it's I have to say too, and this is another factor. I think last week's game woke the beast with Miami. I think all the BS in that game, the cheap shots and everything else, the way these guys came together down the stretch in that game last week, I think kind of shook them out of that malaise we saw a little bit over the past few weeks. And, you know, it couldn't come at a better time walking into easily their toughest game remaining on their schedule to wake the hell up and band together. You can't tell me Xavier Howard's not going to come out angry this week. You can't tell me Devontae Parker is not going to come out ready to prove some stuff this week. Yeah, I was on a Zoom call with him this week and he was pissed. So it's he's sitting there like, look, we're a family, we love each other, and I do it again in a heartbeat. Like it's like, okay, all right, good for you.
Yeah, I'll tell you. And if I weren't a Dolphins fan, I would probably go out of my way to think that this is a cool team. It's cool to be a Dolphins fan again. I said our first year that we moved to this format, I think it was 2017, that we moved to this format of doing the show. And that was the year of Jay Cutler coming in. And yeah, Jay Cutler as quarterback. Yeah, Jarvis Landry getting taunting penalties after a 7-yard catch. It was a team I just didn't like very much. I mean, I love the Dolphins, but the character of the team I just didn't really care for all that much. I wanted different players.
There
The
really
Dolphins
wasn't
have those.
character.
There was not. And now you look on the roster here and it's a young team. It's 8-4. They've exceeded expectations. They've got more draft picks in the future. This week could go a lot further to doing that. But on the other side, if the Dolphins lose this game, just for our listeners here, there is no way, regardless of what happens in any of the other games, that the Dolphins will not still be hanging on to a playoff spot heading into week 15, even if they lose 40-0 and everything goes wrong in all the other games. So
They're not losing 40 to nothing.
no,
Stop it.
They're
They are
not. Of
not
course they're not.
losing 40-0. They are going to hold the Chiefs under 25 points in this game.
Oh wow. Okay. So yeah, we'll keep it with that first. The what is your bold prediction and what is your score prediction here?
I think my bold prediction, I'm sticking with the tight ends. I'm going to stick with the tight ends, and I'm going to stick with Eric Rowe in this one. I think he holds Kelsey under 4 catches, under 40 yards, and no touchdowns. And I think Eric Rowe gets a pick in this one because hothead Kelsey, and he is a hothead, is going to start doing some stupid stuff, and it's going to give Eric Rowe an opportunity. My score prediction, I keep going back and forth with both teams in that 20 to 24 point range. I think Kansas City scores 21 in this one. If Miami can figure out their red zone offense, I think they win on a last minute field goal to win it 24-21. If they can't figure out their red zone offense, I think they lose 21-20 because they end up settling for field goals early and it comes back to bite them. You know what? To hell with it. This is a fun year, a team with some fight. I'm going to say they figure it out this week in 24-21 Miami.
Okay. Okay. I think the Dolphins are going to come out this week swinging. I see them getting a first. I see them leading the game, let's say midway into the second quarter, and maybe even by 2 scores. Then at that point, I think when that happens, this Chiefs offense, it's almost good news for them because we can just throw the ball in every play. We can just spread the field out. The heck with it. We don't even have to worry about running the ball anymore. And that's when the Chiefs are unfortunately a little bit more in their element. So I'm going to go 31-21 Chiefs, just very simply because of the opponent we're playing. It's not reflective of how the Dolphins are. I agree with you. I think the Dolphins have woken up because when you look at that Broncos game, that Jets game, and the first half of the Bengals game, I thought this is not good enough for the last 4 games. And then you had that stuff with Jakeem Grant. All 3 phases of the Dolphins team started to play well together. That's what they need to bring here. But I'm going to go 31-21 Chiefs. My bold prediction is going to be to a stat line. I'm going to have him throwing over 300 yards for the first time in his career. I'm also going to have him throwing his first career interception, and not just 1 interception, but 2 interceptions, 1 to Honey Badger and 1 to Brashad Breeland on this one here. So it's going to be that's what I say. And hey, look, again, Dolphins win this game. Man, things get fun after that. That's for sure.
Yeah, if Miami wins this game, I think we rattle off the next 2 against the Pats and the Raiders and go into Buffalo either fighting for the title or really with Buffalo having to fight us for it, which either way could be a fun place to be. But yeah, this one is a critical domino to get where we want to be.
I've said for weeks now that in his last 4 games, I see the Dolphins going 1-3, losing to the Chiefs, losing to the Bills, and splitting with the Patriots and Raiders. After seeing how poorly Cam Newton and the Patriots played, I'm leaning a little bit more toward 10-6 and the Dolphins making the playoffs now. But either way, unless there's a major injury or they lose all their last 4 games, I'm always going to qualify this season as a very successful building block here for the future with the draft picks and with the free agency money that they do have. Paul, has anything jumped out from our chat here today?
Oh, everybody hates you for your prediction.
That's why I don't look at the chat because it's going to bother me.
I'm just messing with you.
I love the people that chat in. I read them afterward. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But it messes with me. I can't do 2 things at once.
No worries, dude. And really, one thing I do want to say is, guys, make sure you are liking, make sure you're subscribing. It only helps us out with getting some visibility out there. And, I appreciate, we've got so many regulars that are in here every time. And huge thanks to you guys for joining us every Saturday, every Sunday night.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It is huge. I mean, we've got a lot of confident fans in here. We really do. It's a bold prediction. Gailey catches a touch. Jesus Christ. Oh, no, we're good. We're good. It's I think we're good with the chat right
Okay.
now.
Okay. So that sounds good. And yeah, I mean, I really don't have a whole heck of a lot else. I'm going to enjoy the game this weekend. My wife is a Chiefs fan. My in-laws are Chiefs fans. I live in St. Louis on the other side of the state from Kansas City. So I have a lot of friends that are Chiefs fans. So if they lose, it's going to be a rough week for me, but I'm going to have fun with it anyway.
Cat,
And that's going to do it for,
real
yeah, go
quick
ahead.
before we haven't really touched on the special teams, and do you think that that's going to be a huge factor, making the Chiefs have to go long field very often with Miami's special teams unit and the way that they're playing right now?
Probably won't be as impactful as other games because Pat Mahomes could just fire the ball 30 yards and it's like, okay, well, that's kind of expected. But yeah, I mean, I think anytime Matt Hawk can play like he has this year, I think it's huge. Jason Sanders, I expect to continue to make field goals. I will say this: Jakeem Grant. I don't care. I don't care if he got speared twice last week. And I know that that was a dirty play by Mike Thomas. Please fair catch the football this week. I don't want to see what I saw last week. It's that was Jakeem Grant returning punts in 2016 and 2017. Yeah, I know he can take it to the house, but he's also this year and really for the last 2 years shown great discretion at knowing when to call a fair catch. That all went out the window last game. It's like after he dropped that 90-yard pass, he started playing on just pure emotion the rest of the game. He needs to rein it in, and you can bet Brian Flores and Danny Crossman. I've talked to him about it this week.
Absolutely, it's and that's exactly what I was going to say. There is, he's been talked to about it, and that said, I've overall loved what Jakeem's done as a punt returner this year, and as bad as it was last week, that might be one of those moments we point to where we saw this team truly come together. And you can't tell me they're not going to go an additional mile for Flores after watching him go over and play the Brian Cox role last week. You can't tell me that the fact that Jakeem Grant chased down Devontae Parker and Mac Hollins and hugged them both when they got kicked out of the game, when they were heading to the tunnel.
Yeah, yeah, and
Little
yeah,
things like that are so underrated and so important with a football team, and the fact that they talk about each other as a family from top to bottom is huge. I think I've told you this before, Kat. I don't know if it was on the air or off the air. When I coach the little guys, the first thing I say to them at the very first practice of the year is that they are a family, and it's such a critical part of football that goes under the radar, underrated, and is huge, win or lose, as far as how you treat each other, and as far as what you truly are and having an identity. And I love seeing it with this team. It's great to see it from Miami in this one.
yeah, it is. It is a brotherhood, and for listeners that don't know, I'm actually a national collegiate bowler. So I can relate. We used to get in melees up at the snack bar all the time, and we'd have to have each other's backs on that. So I hear you there too. I can bring my personal experiences into this as well.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was a national collegiate bowler, but the rest is nonsense. But yeah, you're right. Typically, too, I say with what you just said, I usually lean a little bit more to. I don't buy into a lot of that as much. I think you're professionals on that, but when you saw what happened last week after Grant, I mean, immediately after that happened, you started to see the team playing tougher, playing more focused football. So something happened there. There's no doubt about that. Hopefully they take this here into the next game. And that's going to do it for our breakdown of the Dolphins Chiefs game heading into this Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. You can follow Paul and I on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. I'm Brian Cat NFL. Paul is fanatic_pick on Twitter. If it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side.